Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossignol, and today I'm going to go over a very popular topic in the baseball world. I'm going to be riding solo, and I have some 4 or 5 bullet points that I wrote down, and excited to go over, spread some information, just some stuff that I think will be really actionable for you to take home and to use as you prepare for the spring season. And today's topic is arm care, and arm care is a very broad topic. And for a lot of people, I think what people actually think arm care is versus what arm care should be is two different things. I think we get caught up in um, the bands, the small weights, and all of that stuff, instead of actually understanding that arm care is a full body piece. And if you're only hammering the bands or the small weights, you're not prepping your arm or doing the stuff to prepare your arm for what you're trying to do. And that is throwing a baseball at a high speed and with a lot of volume. Baseball is very repetitive, and your arm has to be able to withstand the repetitiveness of the nature of the sport, and there's no getting around that. And so, in today's conversation, I just want to go over one, what arm care should start to look like, how to start to apply it, things that you should focus on so that you prepare your arm for the demands of the sport, and then also just the recovery piece of it. And I think when you start putting all of those together, you give yourself a shot to really safely protect your arm. Now, it's not to sit here and say if you do all this, it's 100%. That's just not gonna be as realistic. And so, but we want to be as bulletproof as you possibly can. And I don't know, bulletproof is a fancy term that gets thrown around a lot, but we're just trying to build resiliency. We're trying to build robustness and things that are going to help strengthen the arm, build stability around especially the shoulder joint, and give yourself a strong and healthy arm that's ready to compete at a high level. So with that, we're going to start with what I think is the most important thing is arm care should be full body care. Arm care starts with building a really strong foundation from the lower half, the core, and then the scap. And then from there, it gets into the finer details of the forearms and the rotator cuff. And when we talk about full body care, we want to build that strong base. And so having a strong lower body gives you the base and support for the demand to be higher on the upper body. You see kids, and this doesn't necessarily have as much to do with arm care itself, but you see guys who throw really hard, but the rest of their body may be underdeveloped, and they're not ready for the demands of throwing at that high a speed or the volume that you're throwing at when you're playing. So first, get the lower body strong. Second, we got to get the core strong. The core is what's going to be able to transfer that energy up to the arm and allow that arm to transfer that force that we're trying to create from the ground. I think, and this is into a different conversation, but a lot of times we think of the lower half as, a just strength based, but really the lower body is the most important thing, is creating a really solid, strong foundation, but a real strong base of support. It's like you're not going to be able to go throw on a boat. It's going to be shaking. It's going to be unstable. Your legs need to be that stable base to give your arm the support that it needs. So now, a lot of times you see also the upper half gets neglected. We've been told don't bench press, don't overhead press, don't go heavy upper body, only bands. And I think now with the demands of the sport, the demands of throwing at a higher velocity, that's just not true. Our guys here at RT, they're lifting upper body heavy they're pressing, they're rowing, they're doing lots of pulls within like chin ups, pull ups, other pulling variations. But the goal is to get the shoulder and the upper body as strong as possible. Now, with that, we have to look at the individual. Is there some mobility restrictions? Are there some things that are going to restrict the athlete from getting into better overhead positions? So understanding how the athlete moves, what the athlete needs, and then giving them the proper exercises to build strength from there is what goes into it. But at the end of the day, our athletes are getting strong upper body because that's what's going to take for the demands of throwing a baseball. Now, with that, there's a couple things we look at when we're helping our athletes on the upper body half. One is the building the ability to withstand lots and lots of reps. Also, the strength side to produce a lot of force at a high rate. And then when you have those two together, it allows your body to then go throw at the demands and the repetitiveness of baseball. Now, the one thing I would say when we're talking about core strength is it's not your standard crunches, sit-ups, things like that. Even once you get to a point that you've built enough stability, it's getting away from even the power presses and things like that. It's things that are going to build strength in your trunk, your core, so you can transfer the energy or the forces up through the arm. So really making sure that we're not just doing crunches or sit-ups or just planks. Like, we have to build a strong core that's going to be able to withstand the forces and produce force, because that core, if it's not in a good spot, isn't able to transfer the force all the way up through into the ball that we're hoping to. So step number one is get strong. The upper body, the lower body has to be strong to withstand, to protect yourself from the demands of the sport. And if you're just doing little 5-pound dumbbells, you're not going to be giving it the strength that it needs. The bands itself aren't going to be giving you enough of a stimulus that you're looking for so that you can adapt to the demands of throwing. Now, we're just talking throwing general. Throwing a baseball is the most demanding thing you can do in sport, and is the quickest, fastest motion that happens. The amount of force that is put on your shoulders is way more than your body's overall just strength. And so we have to really, really prepare. And I'm trying not to get too deep into the nerdy side here. I'm trying to keep it so you can use this information and help you take those next steps so that your arm care starts to evolve into a better, more robust arm care that's going to help you get stronger, protect your arm, and at the end of the day, your heavy arm care days should be also helping you so you throw harder and in a safer manner. So we talked about the strength of the lower body. The next thing I'm thinking about is scapula movement. All right, we need good scapula movement, and I think there's 3 things we got to look at when we're looking at the scapula, and without getting too sciencey with it, but the serratus anterior, the lower trap, and then just how the rotator cuff posterior tilts, things like that. If we get good scapular movement, it's going to put the arm in a better position at ball release, allow us to transfer that energy more efficiently, and give us a better chance to just overall better movement. And so when we're trying to do that, it starts with getting the scap strong, training the specific movements to build that strength and stability through those areas. I think one of the most neglected muscles is the serratus anterior, and the serratus anterior really helps that arm get overhead in a strong, safe manner, creating like really good upward rotation that we're trying to get, so that our shoulders in a better spot at ball release. So when we're looking at developing our athletes, we really look at how their scap and shoulder blade moves. Is it depressed? Meaning, is it down? Is it overly upper rotated, and so we can't get that good upper rotation? How does the is a lot of for a lot of throwers, just from the demand of throwing, you'll see they have a lower uh, scap on whatever side, whether they're right or left side. Their shoulder blade will sit just a little bit lower, and so getting guys to, one, build awareness, two, work on them raising that scapula so it's not in that depressed position, and then it's going to put it in a better spot for that shoulder to upperly rotate. Now, the rotator cuff itself is four muscles in itself, and there's four muscles that are part of the rotator cuff. And the goal of the rotator cuff is to stabilize the ball and socket joint for your arm when you're going to throw. And a lot of times we see as guys don't have that good movement of the scap, the shoulder, and so the ball and socket's moving around, and not able to stay in the joint and pressing up against the front of the shoulder, or it's raising up into almost their ear. We're really trying to create this good stability through the rotator cuff by getting it strong and strengthening the four muscles so that it stays stabilized in the joint itself. And if we don't have the strength or good movement, then it's not going to allow us for the rotator cuff to do its job, or the ball to stay in the socket the way we're hoping to when we go to throw. And so you hear like, oh, my rotator cuff, oh this, oh that, and there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying my rotator cuff. And so understanding that and strengthening the stuff around it is going to help the rotator cuff be the strong as it possibly can, and the most robust that it possibly can. And so we got to think of it as a whole. And this goes to what we were talking about earlier with understanding that we have to be strengthening the whole body, not just the shoulder or the rotator cuff. We got to really focus on building the movement and the movement capacity, as well as strengthening the rotator cuff. And if we don't have the movement capacity or the proper movement, and we're trying to strengthen the rotator cuff itself, we're not going to be strengthening in the right range of motion. Like you see guys who will do external rotation or just other banded exercises, and they're really not getting the stimulus or the movement, the exercise that they're hoping for, because they're not doing it within good movement. So understanding like the biggest thing within training the rotator cuff and just the arm and the scap in general is quality movement. Understand how you want it to move, and having the awareness to move properly through those ranges of motion. And that's something, especially when it comes to band. This is kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but as you see guys doing a lot of band work, you see guys just kind of going through, not really paying attention to what they're doing. They're just kind of throwing their arm around, not actually getting the movement that they're looking for, and they're training a bad movement pattern that end up sticking, or they're not getting the strength in the area that they're hoping for. So really paying attention to detail when you're doing your band work and your arm care stuff is almost as important as just doing it itself. And so a lot of times this stuff gets taken for granted when it comes to the arm care, the shoulder stuff, and we got to really make sure that we're actually honing in on what we're trying to do and understand what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel, where you're supposed to feel it. I think, and that's something that we talk to a lot of our athletes about, is understand, okay, I want to feel this in, say, the back of my shoulder, or I want to feel this here, and understanding. So if you're not feeling it in that spot, why? Are you not moving right? Do you have too much weight and other stuff's taking over? So we really have to make it, and honestly, for a lot of our guys, I'd rather you err on the side of caution in terms of like weight, and we're getting the good movement, versus the other way around, and we're not getting the movement that we're looking for. So like I said, when it comes to this stuff, it starts with us doing a screening, seeing how our athletes move, how their scap moves, how their forearms move, how their arm moves in general. is their rib cage locked down? And if their rib cage is locked down, it's gonna be hard for the scap to move. It's just understanding how our athlete move, and then understand how they're supposed to move, or getting them to understand how they're supposed to move, and then giving them movements that are gonna help create the movement patterns that we're looking for, that are gonna help keep the shoulder and arm moving better and healthier. And so, um, a lot of the arm care that we do is as much about it itself, but also the education and teaching our athletes the what and the why and the how, so that they can be their best coach. And that's always what it reverts back to for us, is having our athletes in a position to be their best coach, so that they can coach themselves when we're not there. And especially like the arm care stuff, a lot of that stuff's done at the field, um, or after they throw, and or at least it should be. And so we want them to know what and how they're supposed to be doing, so that they can do it properly to get the benefits that we're hoping for. The other thing is making sure we're not doing more isn't always better. It's making sure we have the right dose and when we're doing this, and giving our athletes the proper amount of arm care. Just doing more to do more, like it kind of with the movement patterns, it just doesn't get where we want, because we're starting to do it improperly. We also then don't get the recovery that we're looking for, and we're going to get into more of that here in a little bit. But you're not getting that recovery that you're looking for from a shoulder and arms perspective, and then now we're not getting the results that we're looking for. So, understanding that movement matters, it's a full body care that creates better arm care. So we've talked a little bit about full body care. We talked about how the shoulder moves. Another big thing that we've started doing here, and I think really benefit a lot of our athletes, just more direct forearm work, and we've seen it be really beneficial. I think just getting strong in supination, getting strong in pronation, ulnar deviation, things like that, having exercises that help our athletes build strength through those areas is very important. And a lot of guys either don't have the range of motion in pronation or supination, and so giving them exercises that help them get better range of motion through those areas, and then building strength on top of it through those ranges of motion, so that they are building a more robust forearm for when it comes time to throw, and when it comes to throw at a high velocity. So understanding that, I think just doing a couple farmers carries isn't going to be enough. Just doing some pronation, supination with a bat, although that is a good piece, there needs to be more and more direct forearm work, hitting the flexor, the pronators, all of those muscles directly. And if you have something that's maybe a little bit more weak, and make sure you're hammering that to really protect that forearm. So understanding what you need, where you need it, and then make sure you're directly hitting that forearm, because I think it's definitely something that gets very neglected, and is something that's just not talked about enough, and it's something we've started implementing from stuff we've been learning, and I definitely think it's been a game changer for us. It's just like and all this is lower body, but like the ankle, the Achilles, the calf just don't get talked about enough, and not something that is trained enough. And so it's the same thing with the forearm, and it can really have some amazing benefits when done right. And so making sure that you're hammering that forearm work to really give yourself the strength to withstand throwing at a high velocity. I mean, at the end of the day, throwing a baseball isn't a natural movement. It's not. Throwing at high speeds is a lot of force on the arm. So making sure we're doing everything we possibly can to protect that arm the best that we can, and give it the strength to be able to withstand doing it over and over. Like, that's just what baseball is. And so another big thing that we've added to our arm care is a lot of hanging variations, from just regular hangs, single arm hangs, single arm scap pull-ups, eccentric, single arm eccentric, all kinds of different variation, fingertip carries, or fingertip hangs. Understanding just that this is not only is that great forearm work, but also it's strengthening the shoulder and in a inflection overhead, and which also is going to prepare the arm for the demands of throwing a baseball. And baseball is an overhead sport, so we got to really get strong overhead. And I think if baseball and overhead pressing, overhead training has been neglected a lot, it's been frowned upon. It's been told it was bad, and realistically, it's really important that we're doing it, that we're strengthening it for the forces that are of throwing a baseball. There is no single higher force on the shoulder joint, and so make sure we're preparing for it by doing stuff overhead, and especially the single arm hangs, the single arm scap pull-ups, the hangs in general as you work your way up to that, and understanding those movements are going to really, really pay off in building strength appropriately and in the right areas for the demands of throwing. And so that's something we've implemented, seen great success with, and something that it's been a real game changer. There's more to it, but I think for you, if you were to incorporate it into your arm care routine, is having a set number of movements within hanging, whether it's like 1 or 2 movements, let's say anywhere from 3 to 6 sets in a week, and getting some good hanging in is going to be really beneficial to you and your arm care and your overall development, and getting your arm, building the robustness in your arm. So big thing to just look at. And if you have any questions, please make sure to DM us, reach out, leave a comment. But going back, another thing this doesn't have to do with necessarily arm care, but a good thing to do that we've implemented at times is the arm care app. Just being able to monitor our athletes' just strength and movement, and making sure that they just gives us something to track and understand where they're at, what they need, and how they're feeling. And sometimes, if you have that, you're able to monitor trends. Is the strength going up, strength going down? What do our athletes need to help them protect themselves and give them the best program that they have? And that starts with understanding where they are at. So I don't know if there is necessarily there's not one specific exercise. It's a combination of exercises, and it's understanding how you do these exercises that you're getting the importance of good quality movement, strengthening the areas itself within the rotator cuff, the scap, good movement through the scap, strengthening the rotator cuff, strengthening the forearm. Another piece is, when it comes to arm care, is the recovery piece. And so the recovery is, just as important as the heavy stuff that you're doing as well. And it's the ability for your arm to regroup, essentially. When you do your heavy work, you're beating down the muscle, the joint, the tendons. So we got to really make sure that we're allowing those to recover, so that you're not throwing or training on a fatigued joint, muscle, or tendon. That's when things become the most dangerous, I guess, in a sense. And that's not the best word, I would say, but understanding that we have to allow the recovery to get away from the fatigue, because when we're training and doing all this stuff under fatigue, the muscles and joints can't do what we want them to do to protect us. And so just make sure you have planned recoveries. And when we're looking at the arm care itself, it's like having a plan. For us, we're doing our heavy arm care on our heavy throwing days. So we're combining those stresses or stressors, so that when we want the recovery to happen, we're going to be able to recover on our recovery days. Now, on our medium days, that's what we're doing our medium arm care. All of it's built into a plan to give our athletes a plan within the week that they follow, and it's built into their overall program. It's not just like random. We have it built out in their program so they know what to do, when to do it, and they are following something that allows them to be consistent and productive. So to kind of recap, we got to make sure we're getting strong, building a solid foundation. Just bands and little 5-pound plates isn't enough for arm care. We got to starts with full body care. 2, understanding good movement of the scap, the shoulder, the arm in general allows for proper movement, allows for the proper muscles and joints to properly be used to gives us the best position for our arm to be in when we throw. If our scap's not properly rotating, we're not getting good posterior tilt of the shoulder. When we're trying to go overhead, the ball is not going to stay in the socket because it's a ball and socket joint. And so we got to make sure we have good movement, and then make sure we're really prioritizing forearm work and hanging, and last, recovery. And then just the overall schedule of how you give yourself or build it into your week. Now, this isn't a end all be all. It's just kind of how we structure our arm care, and I tried to make it so it wasn't. I was trying to make it pretty simple instead of getting too, into the sciencey part of why and what, so that you could use it and take it with you into your plan and your program, especially if you're not an RT athlete. If you're an RT athlete, this stuff's all broken down for you and put into your programs. And another important thing is within being an RT athlete, we really try to emphasize understanding the why of what you're doing, not just the how or what you do. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes we see athletes make is just kind of going through with no real attention to detail when it comes to arm care. And so they start ingraining bad patterns. They start ingraining bad movements. They're not strengthening the areas we need to strengthen. And so really make sure you treat your arm care like any other part of your training. And although it might be, 5%, 10% of your training, it still is really important. But if the one thing is, you got to make sure it's not 100% of your arm training, because if you do that, you're not going to be putting it in a position to be ready to withstand the demands of throwing a baseball at a high speed and high repetition, high volume. So understand that it has to be prioritized. It has to be done with attention to detail. And if you do that, you're going to build better robustness. You're going to be stronger, and your arm's going to be in a better spot to continue to get better. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps you kind of come up with a plan as you go through your off season or just overall arm care, and know what you need to do so that you are taking the right steps. If you have any questions, please make sure to reach out so we can help you. Our athletes at RT have all this built in. Anyways, I hope you continue to enjoy the podcast. Please like, subscribe, share. It helps us continue to grow. And if you need to find us, you can find us at rossistraining.com. Always Instagram, Rossi's Training. You can always DM us. But if you have any questions, please make sure to reach out. And I thank you for listening.